One of America's most iconic pizzas was accidentally invented in a car parts factory. Another one can legally get you fined for making it wrong. And one country rolls theirs into a wrap and calls it a meal. Neapolitan pizza. The poor saved pizza. The rich almost killed it. When tomatoes arrived in Europe from the Americas in the 1500s, wealthy Italians refused to touch them. They looked suspicious. They belonged to the nightshade family. They had to be poisonous. So the upper class left them alone, and the working poor of Naples did what hungry people always do. They tried anyway. They spread tomatoes onto flatbread, added a little cheese, baked it fast, sold it cheap, and accidentally created one of the most copied foods in human history. But here's what makes the original so hard to copy. A real Neapolitan pizza uses almost nothing. Soft wheat flour, water, salt, yeast, San Marzano tomatoes, fresh mozzarella, basil, olive oil. That's it. The dough ferments for hours, building tiny air pockets that create a crust that's somehow both light and chewy at the same time. Then it goes into a wood-fired oven at nearly 900 degrees Fahrenheit. 90 seconds later, it's done. That crust, slightly charred on the outside, almost molten in the center, is why many Italians still eat it with a knife and fork. Not because they're being fancy, because it genuinely collapses if you pick it up. Today, Neapolitan pizza is so legally protected that inspectors can visit your restaurant, taste your pizza, and strip your certification on the spot if your dough is too thick or your oven runs cold. Thousands of pizzerias claim to serve the authentic version. Very few actually pass. But while Naples was perfecting the original, New York was building something faster, bigger, and louder. New York-style pizza. New York pizza wasn't designed to be eaten. It was designed to be eaten while doing something else. When Italian immigrants flooded into New York in the late 1800s, they brought their food with them. But the city had no patience for sitting down. Construction workers had 15 minutes for lunch. Cab drivers ate between fares. Everyone was moving. So the pizza adapted. The pies grew wider. The slices grew bigger. The crust got thin enough to fold lengthwise without cracking. Not for style, but so you could hold it with one hand while doing everything else with the other. What most people don't know is that New York pizza makers are quietly convinced their water is the secret. The city's tap water has a specific mineral profile they believe creates a dough texture that's impossible to replicate anywhere else. Skeptical? Consider this. Some pizzerias outside New York actually import the water, not as a gimmick, because they believe it makes a measurable difference. Whether science fully backs that up or not, the pizza that came out of this city became a cultural institution. Grabbing a slice on Spring Street in 1905, where one of America's earliest pizzerias first opened, cost almost nothing. Today, a New York slice is still one of the best deals in American food, but one city decided thin was a problem to be solved. Chicago, deep dish. Chicago didn't make pizza bigger. Chicago made pizza into something else entirely. In the 1940s, a group of investors opened a restaurant in Chicago with a simple goal: make pizza so filling that people would pay more for it and stay longer. They flipped the entire structure upside down. Cheese goes on the dough first, directly on the bottom. Toppings sit on top of that. Then last of all, the tomato sauce goes on top of everything. That might sound backwards, but it's intentional. At the temperature and baking time, deep dish requires putting sauce on top is the only way to keep the cheese from burning. The crust isn't bready like a New York slice. It's closer to pastry, buttery, flaky, and almost crumbly. One slice can weigh more than an entire Neapolitan pizza. You eat it with a fork. You don't eat two slices. The argument about whether this is actually pizza has been going for 80 years and shows no signs of stopping. New Yorkers tend to say no. Chicagoans don't particularly care what New Yorkers think. What nobody argues about is what deep dish proved. Pizza didn't need to follow anyone's rules anymore. And that realization led directly to one of the most unexpected pizza origin stories in American history. Detroit-style pizza. In 1946, a Detroit bar owner named Gus Guerra needed to add food to his menu. He had no pizza oven, no professional training. What he had was a Sicilian mother-in-law with a family recipe, and a problem. What do you bake a thick, square pizza in when you don't own the right pans? Guerra used rectangular steel pans that had been used as drip trays in local automotive factories, the kind Detroit plants used to catch fluids under car parts. They were never designed for food, but they were made of thick blue steel that held heat like a cast iron skillet, and when the cheese, Wisconsin brick cheese, pushed all the way to the edges, touched those blazing hot sides of the pan, something remarkable happened. It fried. The cheese caramelized against the metal into a lacy, crackling crust that nobody had ever tasted on a pizza before. The sauce went on top, in thick stripes, after baking, keeping everything underneath perfectly crisp. Buddy's Rendezvous served its first square pizza in 1946, becoming what Buddy's calls the first known square pizza in the United States. For nearly 80 years, almost nobody outside Michigan knew it existed. Then someone posted a photo of those caramelized cheese edges online. Then another person did. Then food writers started making pilgrimages to Detroit. Then pizzerias in Tokyo. London and Sydney started building their own versions of a pan that started life in a car factory. Few foods have had a longer wait for the spotlight they deserved. Sicilian pizza. Most people think Sicilian pizza is just thick pizza. It isn't. The original, called sfincione, doesn't even use mozzarella. The toppings are slowly caramelized onions, tomatoes, anchovies, oregano, and hard cheese, pressed into a dough that ferments long enough to develop an interior full of air bubbles. It's closer to focaccia than anything else. Light, oily, fragrant. When Sicilian immigrants brought it to New York, they made it thicker, loaded it with mozzarella, and cut it into squares. That version became its own institution, sold from trays in New York bakeries for over a century. Both versions call themselves Sicilian. They taste almost nothing alike, and both are worth arguing about. Pizza al taglio. In Rome, pizza is sold by weight. You walk into a shop, you point to whatever you want. The person behind the counter picks up a pair of scissors, cuts off your portion, weighs it on a scale, and charges you accordingly. No full pie. No set slice size. Just, how much do you want? The dough ferments for up to 72 hours, creating a structure that's airy and almost honeycomb-like on the inside, while the bottom stays completely crisp. Because it's baked in long, rectangular trays, one shop can offer 20 different toppings at once. You can try 4 kinds of pizza in the same visit and spend less than a coffee. It's one of the most practical and underrated pizza formats on earth, and it's almost completely unknown outside Italy.